My name's Charlie Skelton, and I'm a writer from the UK.
From the UK?
Yeah.
What magazine?
Well, currently The Guardian, okay. But mainly I write stuff for TV. So this is like a hobby.
Okay. What are you doing here in Denmark?
Well, I'm trying to cover the Bilderberg conference, the 2014 Bilderberg conference, which is happening not so far away over there at the Marriott Hotel, and just doing my best to talk about it seriously and bring a bit of much-needed media attention to an important subject.
Okay. What's the importance of the subject?
Well, it seems to have brought you guys here. So the importance of the subject for me is that there's so many politicians and policymakers who are spending such a long, intense period with so many interested parties from corporations, banks, financial institutions, oil companies, etc., arms companies. They're spending it in such seclusion for so long, with no minutes and no public or press recourse to or oversight to what's going on. So that's what bothers me, and that's why I'm here, trying to like you guys, I guess, trying to do a bit of press oversight.
Okay. So from your point of view, it's kind of like the Bilderberg conference imposes some kind of threat to democracy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's the antithesis of democracy. I think it's it's just you've got democracy and you've got that sort of thing over there, and what is? I mean, that's lobbying. It's a kind of glorified lobbying occasion. It's not democracy, no.
And who is lobbying for what?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I suppose you could say that the CEOs of corporations they're looking at their shareholders and their share prices and all of that kind of thing. There's a lot of billionaire investors and billionaire investment funds and private equity funds who are looking to kind of get a heads up on where to place their global assets and on that kind of thing. So there's a lot of interested parties. And that would obviously happen when you have that many different kinds of people all together at the same place. So many kind of regulators, policymakers, politicians, and businessmen and corporations.
Are there any certain corporations that's more important than others?
Well, I guess the big ones would be things like Shell. Shell have got three board members here. Including the chairman and the CEO. I guess you'd say Goldman Sachs, they've got 3 senior members here. God, I need a haircut. So, the big banks, something like HSBC has got its chairman and the chairman's chief advisor here. And that's one of the biggest banks in the world. So, I'd be interested in just pointing out the biggest of those institutions.
Okay. Among those big corporations, you say that there are some banks. Are there any particular role for banks in the matter?
Well, I mean, you have, for example, some of the bankers there, like the head of HSBC is a member. He's head of the International Institute of Finance, which is a kind of high finance lobby group. And I think it's Marcus Wallenberg is vice chairman of that group. So that's a banking lobby group. So there's 2 very senior members of that lobby group who are there, amongst other things, promoting the interests of that lobbying organisation. Which I'm not saying lobbying organisations shouldn't exist and trade organisations shouldn't exist. Obviously they should. It's fine. But it's the way that this situation is and this process is going on that unsettles me.
Do you think that the corporate press like The Guardian, do you think that they cover this matter in a proper way for the democracy?
there's a lot of words in that sentence. The corporate press.
Yeah, what do you say? Like the ordinary press.
The mainstream.
The mainstream media, as the common saying, yes.
You get all kinds of different coverage of Bilderberg in the mainstream media. I mean, we've seen, last year's a very good example where we had some, the usual terrible coverage of it, plus some really good coverage. So like the Daily Telegraph, that's one newspaper, had some of the worst and some of the best coverage of Bilderberg going on at the same time. So I would like to think that the Guardian at least tries to cover it through, not just me, they've actually sent some other journalists as well in the past. You know, there's some newspapers like the Times never really gets to grips with it. And, you know, Sky News did a very good job last year. They covered it pretty well. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And every year you get the same kind of attack pieces come out in the press. By attack pieces, I mean kind of pieces belittling other journalists who are here covering it, you know, going, oh, what are they talking about? It's nothing. You know, you get those and you expect those, but yet there are fewer of those every year. And, you know, it's thanks to, you know, the alternative media particularly that those stories are going away, because there's so much more knowledge about, for example, the Bilderberg meeting, that it's harder and harder and harder for a lazy journalist to write a lazy piece.